Hey everyone, welcome. Hope you are having a great week so far. Only a day or so into it, but that's all right. Hope things are going well. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. Um, you know what? We're almost done with this series. We've got today, and then we have two more lectures, 2 more weeks. So it's getting down there. And today is a topic not only near and dear to my heart, but it's near and dear to your heart as well, because we've all got managers. And frankly, a lot of the issues that we're going to talk about today are issues that are still vexing managers today. I don't have to tell you, managers get a bum rap. Um, but sometimes they deserve it. Here's the deal. Back in the day, when the mines with Clifford were going on and the Industrial Revolution and all that sort of stuff. We're talking the 1800s, the early 1900s, and so forth. There were three criteria you needed to be a manager. Three criteria. If you ever find yourself in a TARDIS or some other likewise time machine and you end up going back in time and you want to be a manager, here are the three things you need. You need to be white, you need to be a male, and you need to be somehow related to the owner. Son, son-in-law, nephew, cousin, that sort of thing. It was all about nepotism. Those were the only criteria you needed to be a manager. You didn't need to know what you were doing. You didn't need an education. That's all you needed. All right? Well, now, things have changed, right? Things are better, to be sure. But we still don't understand or appreciate management. Let me show you what I mean. There's this thing called the Peter Principle. And the Peter Principle says that you are elevated to your level of incompetence. Elevated, promoted to your level of incompetence. Here's the idea. Let's say that you're a really good professor. All right? Great professor. And they say, you know what? You're such a good professor, we're going to make you chair over the department. Now, you're still a professor, you're still teaching and so forth, but you have some additional responsibilities. You have to go to meetings, you have to make some decisions around curricula and so on and so forth. But you're the chair of the department. And you do really well. You're still teaching because you're a great professor. Chair of the department, everyone says you're doing a great job and so forth. So then they say, you know what? You're such a good chair. We're going to make you an associate dean. And so now you're an associate dean, which is an administrative role. You're not teaching anymore. And now you're in meetings all day long. You're meeting with disgruntled professors, you're meeting with disgruntled students, you're meeting with, deans and provosts who have all this stuff going on, and you're kind of a fish out of water. You are now at your level of incompetence. So you'll never grow beyond associate dean. You're never going to become the dean or the provost or president because you're incompetent, because you are not trained to be a manager. We do not appreciate or recognize management as a specific skill set. Let me show you one more way of expressing this. It's nothing at all to say you're a really good professor, we're going to make you the manager over professors. That doesn't sound odd at all. But imagine if we were to say, you're a really good professor, we're going to make you the medical doctor over professors. What? What do you mean the medical doctor over professors? I'm a good professor. I'm not a medical doctor. Hey, you'll figure it out. It's okay. We'll help ramp you up and so forth. No. Doctor is a distinct skill set. And manager is a distinct skill set, but we don't recognize it as such. We just promote people until they're incompetent, and then that's the level they stay. So, this is still an ongoing issue. Now, real quick, if you do have interest in developing yourself as a people manager, then I have a web series for you, a video series, whatever you want to call it. Okay, if you come over here to Nutshell Brainery and you click here on playlists, there's a playlist here called Fundamentals of People Management. And this course takes you through all the aspects you need to start a career as a people manager. So as we talk today, if you want answers to what do you do in this situation, so on and so forth, check out that course. Okay, so let's get started. We've actually got 3 readings today, so we're going to plow through these pretty quick, but don't worry, we'll have lots of question opportunities and light bulb opportunities. The first reading we're going to look at is General and Industrial Management by Henri Fayol. Okay, so what's his deal? Well, he's noticing that there's no training for managers. Remember, all you needed was to be a white male related to the owner. There wasn't this idea that you needed to train a manager. So he looked around and said, you know what? A lot of these managers are kind of shooting from the hip and don't know what the hell they're doing and so forth. We need to establish some consistent training so that people start to have an appreciation for the skill set that is managers. This is why today we have degrees in management, business management, people management. This is why we have MBAs, Masters of Business Administration. This is training in management. Well, back then, they didn't have anything. So he said, hey, listen, we need some stuff. Now, in the reading, he covers like 13 or 14 points and so forth. We're not going to do all those. I'm just going to highlight a few that I think are particularly salient, especially in today's world and so forth. So, by the way, he says, listen, the only way that you should be judged as a manager, whether you're a good manager or a bad manager, is through the productivity and results of your people, okay? The only way that a manager can express his or her skill set is through the people. And if the people are rocking and killing it and meeting objectives and hitting their goals and thriving and doing well, then you've got a good manager. On the other hand, if the people are struggling, missing their targets, and just flailing about, that's a bad manager. Now, of course, managers love to blame the people, but no, it's your job as a manager to create an environment in which your people can thrive and hit their targets. That's your job, according to Fayol, okay? Another thing he says, and this is going to be a message that we get a lot today, okay? You're going to hear this message a lot. There are no absolute rules or rigid laws about management. I apologize. It's an art. It's all situational. We're going to talk about this a lot today. He says the soundness and good working order of the body corporate, the organization, depends on a certain number of conditions termed indiscriminately principles, laws, rules. For preference, I shall adopt the term principles while disassociating it from any suggestion of rigidity. For there is nothing rigid or absolute in management affairs. It is all a question of proportion. So a good manager knows how to read the situation, read his or her people, understand the stakeholders, understand what's at stake, understand the resources and the customer, and then manage accordingly. Okay? As I said, this is a message we're going to get a lot because circumstances are always changing. You're never in the same circumstance twice. Okay. As he says, it's an art. Therefore, principals are flexible and capable of adaptation. Adaptation? I guess that's it. To every need. So, be flexible. Okay, so let's talk about some of Fayol's principles of management. These are things that he felt managers needed better training on, all right? One of them is, listen, your people don't want to be there. All right, so let me give you an example. We got some folks here today. You don't want to be here. You don't want to be here. You'd rather be doing something else. In fact, we have like 9 or 10 or 11 people in this course, and we have a couple of people who are here right now. So what's going on? Well, what's going on, dear manager, or in my case, dear professor, is they have individual interests. Your employees have individual interests. They'd rather be at home. They'd rather be working on their own projects. They'd rather be doing something else or another. And so by its very nature, work requires people to subordinate their individual interests and channel their passions and work and time and effort toward the organization's interests, okay? So right now I'm live streaming. I'm doing this for the interests of Salt Lake Community College. I am pushing down my own interests, things I'd rather be doing, because I believe in what we're trying to do at Salt Lake Community College. Okay, you get that. All right. Well, managers don't always get that, according to Fayol. They understand, listen, they're going to do it because it's their job. They're going to do it. I don't need to give them recognition or motivation because they get a paycheck. It's like, why should they do this? They should do it because they're supposed to. That's not how we work. That's not how we tick, right? A good manager is able to bring about an environment in which people want to subordinate their individual interests for the good of the organization. Now, some of the individual interests that Fayol talks about, now, I'm going to use his words, but they're going to sound negative. They're not. He says ignorance. Some people are just ignorant of what needs to be done, and they're not really interested in learning what needs to be done. It's like, I don't know, I'm just kind of doing it and so forth. You guys know that you can actually get through a course and get a pretty good grade and still be relatively ignorant of what the course was about. Guys, I have like freaking 3 degrees and a certification. I don't remember anything. I mean, I remember some, but I don't remember a lot. So a good manager knows how to inspire somebody to want to learn and grow and overcome ignorance. Ambition. A lot of people are ambitious, which is good, except when personal ambition gets in the way of organizational objectives. If somebody is simply a ladder climber, they are going to do whatever is best for their ambition, for their individual interests, not what's good for the team necessarily. A good manager knows how to manage this. Selfishness. I don't like the word selfishness because we are all selfish. You gotta, to some degree or another, take care of yourself so you can take care of others. When the, oxygen mask comes down in the airplane, put on your own mask before putting on the mask of your kid next to you and so forth. Laziness. Laziness is the fault of the manager. Okay? People are not lazy. They are uninspired and bored. And it is the manager's job to create a work environment that inspires, that invigorates, that stimulates people to want to perform. We're actually going to talk about that here in a few slides. So this is the first thing that Fayol says, you got to think about this stuff, all right? And you got to train managers on it. So let's do our first question thing. There are plenty of things that prevent me from subordinating my individual interests, okay? If we go back here, I'm ignorant of plenty policies. And frankly, I don't really care that I'm ignorant of policies because the policies always change. So as soon as I figure it out once, it's only going to change, so I don't worry about it. Okay, management needs to take this into account. I'm not really ambitious, so I'm not worried about ambition. That one doesn't prevent me from subordinating individual interests. I am to some degree selfish. All right, I want all the students. I teach a lot of classes and I want my classes full. I'm not really lazy, but I can get uninspired. And I think it's my manager's job to make sure that the environment is such that I'm continually inspired and aspired to do a good job. Again, we'll talk more about that in a moment. So let me ask you for some light bulbs down here at the bottom. What prevents you from subordinating your personal interests for the good of the organization? That could be work, it could be school, it could be family. What is it that you feel like, you know what, my professors or my bosses, my managers, my family, if they could help me overcome this, I could focus less on myself and more on the unit, on the organization, on the school, on my education, on the family unit, things like that. So be a little introspective for a while and for a moment. And what is it that kind of prevents you from giving your all in these various domains? Work, school, family, things like that. And we'll play with that for a minute. Okay, let's do this. So Tyler jumps on in and says, the main thing would have to be family who are my managers, wanting to see me success and grow one day to get that degree. Yes, so our families want us to get the degrees. That's a great example. I have a whole cadre of spawn, and I want them to get their degrees. And so oftentimes I see them struggling to put school first ahead of, say, friends or gaming or their own jobs. That's a hard one because you have a job, but you have school. Which one comes first? It's kind of tough. And so I, as a parent, really struggle, and this is me as a parent, as a manager, Tyler, I really struggled to figure out how can I create an environment that encourages my kids to focus on school ahead of everything else. And that's what I want them to do. And I'm the manager, I'm the father, so that's what I want them to do. And it's tough, right? Because they have their own individual interests, and getting them to subordinate those individual interests for the good of their education, that's a tough thing. Which, by the way, Tyler points out the fact that this management stuff, this is hard. This is hard, which is why it's so infuriating that companies and organizations and institutions don't appreciate how difficult of a skill set this is, and they just promote people to their level of incompetence. Okay, good. Very good. Let's keep going. Remuneration. I'm not going to read all this, but here's what he's saying, is that you ought to pay people fairly. Okay, you should pay people fairly. You know, he says the rate of, by the way, remuneration is a fancy ass word for pay. Every profession needs to make up fancy words to make themselves feel important. And accounting is no different. They talk about remuneration. That's pay. The rate of remuneration depends first on circumstances independent of the employer's will and the employee's worth, cost of living, and so on and so forth. Let's do a little bit of a deep dive into this. So there are external forces that both the employer, the manager, and the employee need to understand we can't really control for, okay? So you as an employer, you're going to either pay for these things or you're going to get a deal depending on the situation. So for example, labor supply. How many people are looking for this job? How easily can I replace someone? If you can replace someone really easily, well, then that job is going to pay a little bit less because you're replaceable. Now, don't worry, we're going to talk about how to address this, right? Geographic differences. What's the cost of living where you work and so forth, where you live? So a lot of companies have to pay more in New York and the Bay Area and California, but they can pay less in, Alabama, Mississippi, Kansas, and so forth. Utah's kind of right in the middle of those. Competition. How much competition is there for the employees out there, for the labor force? Industry, health, and image. So, for example, if all of you got a job offer right now, and it's the exact same job offer, same job, same description, same pay, and you got two job offers, one from Google and one from Yahoo, you would probably choose Google because the image of Google beats Yahoo. Industry health, it kind of feels like Google is more of an up-and-comer and still on the cutting edge of technology, whereas Yahoo, I don't even know what they do anymore, right? So that part plays into this. And then collective bargaining in the case of unions and so forth. These are external. The employee cannot control for these. The employer can't control for these. But then there are things that are internal. And this is things that you can control for and managers need to be willing to pay for. Training and education. I don't have to tell you this. This is why you're here right now. You're getting training and education. I apologize. It always drives me nuts when I see a little dust particle. I'm kind of OCD that way. Anyway, so you're getting training and education so that you can increase your market value. Also, the skills that you bring to bear, same thing. Experience. This is part of the reason you have a job outside of school. Yes, you need the money and so forth, but it's also you want to have the experience so that when you really go into the marketplace for your first big career move, you have some experience under your belt. Performance, and then level of risk and responsibility. A lot of jobs pay more because they're risky or they involve a great deal of risk. So, for example, my father-in-law is a retired FedEx pilot. So you load up an airplane with cargo and you fly it across the country. Okay, whatever. He said one time, listen, I'm just a glorified truck driver. Well, now, when you think about it, he's not wrong. The only difference between a truck hauling freight across country and an airplane flying freight across the country is altitude. It's the same darn thing. It's a great big metal cylinder hauling freight. It's just altitude. Yeah, but with that altitude comes a great deal more responsibility, which is why a pilot is going to be paid more than a truck driver. Okay. All right. Now, another thing that he talks about, and I'm actually going to read this one because it's really important. This to me is the real crux of what managers need to do to inspire the very best performance from their employees. Okay? Thinking out a plan and ensuring its success is one of the keenest satisfactions for an intelligent person to experience. It is also one of the most powerful stimulants of human endeavor. This power of thinking out and executing is what is called initiative. And freedom to propose and execute belongs to, each in its way, to initiative. At all levels of the organizational ladder, zeal and energy on the part of employees are augmented by initiative. Oh my gosh, I could not agree with this more, okay? People are going to do a better job, a more committed job, have a more fulfilled career if they're allowed to think out, plan, and execute on their own accord. If they are allowed the autonomy to assess a situation, devise a solution, and execute to that solution on their own, okay? It's when they are micromanaged and told out of a policy manual exactly how to do something that you're going to kill all initiative from somebody, and you will not inspire the very best behavior out of them. The problem is, and we're going to talk about this here in a moment, a lot of managers think that their job is to manage, which means to control, which means to prescriptively micromanage and tell the employee how to do something, observe them doing it, measuring them doing it, all this sort of stuff. They think that's management. No, management is creating the environment by which your people can thrive without being constantly observed and measured and so forth. That's what initiative is. As I said, Henri Fayol, this was written a long-ass time ago, and there's still issues that we struggle with today. Okay, let's move on. We're going to go on to our second of three readings. This one is Douglas McGregor. He talks about Methods of influence and control. Now, I know things like control, influence, even power can kind of have a negative connotation. He's going to dispel that right away. Okay, so just bear in mind. By the way, he's the founder of Theory X, Theory Y. If you're curious, you can explore that a little bit. Theory X managers think that employees need to be micromanaged and measured and observed in all things, and management by exception, and beatings will continue until morale improves. A Theory Y manager is somebody who says, hey, listen, I'm just going to point you in the direction of the objective, and I'm going to stand back and let you figure out how to do it, exercise your initiative, your autonomy to do it the way that you want to do it. I'm just here to lend support when necessary. That's a Theory Y manager. Okay, now a little bit about Douglas McGregor. He takes a very human-centric standpoint in management. He really wants people to understand this is a human-to-human relationship. Employer, employee, manager, employee. This is not bureaucracy. This is a human-to-human relationship. Just like Fayol, he says there is nothing rigid about this. There is nothing prescriptive. It is an art more than a science. He tells the story of when he was doing some consulting one time, and the company he was consulting with gave him this management manual, and he says, the manual for a supervisory training program in one large company suggests that the instructor point out by analogy and example that the principles of organization are like the laws of physics. He says, no, that's baloney. It's not the laws of physics. Everything's changing. Everything's moving about. He actually has three main gripes with the way management was approached back in the day. And they're gripes that still are valid today, okay? His first gripe is, listen, we're deriving management principles from inappropriate models, okay? For example, military and church. We still do this, okay? I don't know of an MBA program out there that doesn't still read Sun Tzu's Art of War. But I've seen books called like Jesus Christ CEO or something like that, using the Bible as a manual for management. Of course, Sun Tzu's Art of War and Musashi's Book of Five Rings. I've read all these books, okay? Bible is a great book. If you want to start and perpetuate a religion based on certain principles, Bible's great. It's not a management handbook. Sun Tzu's Art of War is a fantastic book. If you want to study military strategy, that's great. It's not a management handbook. Musashi's Book of Five Rings talks about how to use samurai swords. He was a samurai, especially if you want to use the long sword and the short sword at the same time to take a prisoner versus kill your opponent. Great. That's not a management handbook. And yet, he says everybody's pulling from these things. So he has issue with that. The next issue he has, the main next gripe he has, is that managers just kind of say it's always the same environment. They don't recognize that things change, environments change. Ethnocentric, ignoring the fact that political and social and economic and technological realities of the day change. Right? It's always worked. This is the way it's done. We need to reverse trends and bring things back to the way they were. And we don't want to look at AI because it's bad. And by the way, Slick doesn't say it's bad. I'm just saying that'd be an example. A good manager understands that things are always changing, that things are always moving, and he or she needs to adapt his or her management style to meet the needs of the day. And that means that a solution that worked last year may not work this year. And then finally, he kind of feels like management is based on what he calls erroneous assumptions about human behavior, that human behavior can really just be modified with a series of carrots and sticks. What gets measured gets done, what gets rewarded gets done. That's carrots. By the way, carrots and sticks work. So don't measured gets done, rewarded gets done, that works. But hold on, right? So carrots and sticks versus if you do something wrong, management by exception, we're going to, put you through some additional training. We're going to write you up. We're going to reprimand you, so on and so forth. So it's carrots and sticks. That's how you get people to do things. Well, okay, yeah, actually it is. But it's not how you inspire the very best performance from somebody, okay? Remember the initiative that Henri Fayol talked about. That creating an environment that nurtures initiative among employees, that's not a series of carrots and sticks. That's creating a thriving workplace. And that's the job of the manager, not just figuring out carrots and sticks. Okay, which then brings him to power and influence. Now, before we talk about power and influence, we're going to do another question here. For the most part, you do as I ask. All right, you attend these live streams, you put comments in here, and you do the assignments and so forth. Why? Why do you do what I ask? Now, real quick, all your answers are correct. You can't get this wrong. All right? So, give me some thoughts. Why do you do as I ask you to do? All right? And we'll play with this for a couple minutes. There it is. There's the button. Okay, let's take a look at this. So, we got Alyssa. That's okay. Late's fine. You're here. Alyssa says, I do what you ask because I want to know that you, I know that you have a genuine desire to help your students succeed in life. I have a lot of respect for that. Thank you. Thank you. And it is genuine. I really want you to do well. So good. We're going to come back to that one. All right. Tyler says, it all comes down to getting the grade. If I don't do it, I get a horrible grade, a terrible grade. If I do, I most likely get a good grade. This helps me in my goal that gets money. Yes. Okay. I am the holder of the points. Behold, the holder of the points. And you want the points because that gets to a grade, which adds to a GPA, which allows you to get into university, which allows you to earn more money. So ultimately, if you do as I ask now, then through a series of steps, it's going to equate more income for you. These are great answers. Okay, you're absolutely right. So now watch this. What's his name? McGregor, Douglas McGregor. He says, really, he talks about 3 types of power and influence. All right. Now, in other writings and so forth, he talks about more. He goes into more nuanced depth. But here we'll talk about the 3 main categories. He says the first is authority. And he says, listen, authority is basically force, right? You can force somebody to do something because you're in authority. Or we could look at, say, our relationship right now and say, I'm the authority. I'm the professor. I have legitimate position power in this classroom because this is Salt Lake Community College, which is a part of the state of Utah. I am set up as the professor and you're all set up as students. I have position authority in this class. Great. So what? Let me tell you something. This form of authority is really transient, which means hugely temporary and only applicable in certain situations. Let me show you what I mean. Hey, I can give you rewards. I can give you points. This is what Tyler said. I can give you points because of my authority. I can also take away things that you like. I could say, let's say that, and I'm not gonna, but just for sake of example, let's say you all tick me off and I say, okay, I guess we're not going to do the live streams anymore. Just from here on out, do the reading. You're fine. It's an online class. Well, maybe that would be something I could take away. But the point is, I'm not gonna, right? I'm just saying you may not care. Here's the point. In 5 weeks, something like that, I'm not your professor anymore. I don't have any position power. I don't have any authority. The points that you want so very, very much right now cease to be anything important at all after the class is over. So my authority evaporates. Furthermore, my authority, my power only exists in the context of the class. If I run into you at the mall, I know you don't go to the mall. I go to the mall. I'm old. If I run into you at the mall and I say, hey, I'd like to come over and let me pull you aside here. I'd like to take about 10 or 15 minutes of your time and talk about, Kantian ethics. You're going to be like, no, you can go to hell. We can talk in class. I'm at the mall with my friends and family. I don't know where you get off saying, I want to talk to you. Okay? Because, my authority doesn't reach then, right? Oh, thank you, Tyler. I do deeply appreciate that. I do. So this form of authority sucks. And yet, folks, damn it, this is what managers think their power, where they think their power lies. A bad manager, and there's a lot of them out there, think that they are the boss because I have the authority. It's infuriating. On the other hand, what was that? Oh my gosh. Okay, there we go. On the other hand, there's a second kind of power of influence that McGregor talks about, and that's persuasion. Persuasion doesn't require position power. It doesn't require you to be the boss. As a matter of fact, persuasion is a much more egalitarian, one-on-one, let's talk sort of proposition. And this is outside of the context of, say, work or school or once the semester ends and so forth. If I have a relationship with you such that I can persuade you to do something, then that's a durable relationship, all right? This is when I'm selling an idea. I'm encouraging you to do something. For example, if I say, hey, you know what? Now, you'd get points for this, but the point is, if I say, go out to Patreon and sign up as a free member so that after the semester's over, we can continue to have a relationship, sign up for the newsletter so we can continue to have a relationship, talk and so forth, and you can get, member of my Discord and so forth. That is a relationship that continues on past authority. And it's where you and I are persuading each other, we're helping each other, we're coaching each other, we're mentoring each other. And if I ask you to do something, it's going to be because I'm going to be able to say, listen, I think this can help your career. Not because it's an assignment and you need to do it for the points, but I think this can be helpful. For example, at the beginning of this live stream, I pointed out my YouTube course on fundamentals of people management, and said, if you are interested in developing your skills as a people manager, watch those videos. That's something I do out of persuasion. But then there's a third one. This is expertise. Friday live streams. Yes, Tyler, that is a tremendous example. The Friday live streams are completely optional. And so it is not by authority that I invite people to attend. It's out of persuasion of value and hopefully expertise. So expertise is, listen, you have a fair amount of authority or I should say you have a fair amount of influence over people if you have expertise that they really need. If they really want. Think about where you've perhaps worked now or in the past. There's situations where you're kind of like, well, I know that the way to do this is I have to do A, B, C, and D, or I can just contact Christy because Christy knows all this stuff and she's connected and she'll take care of me in 2 minutes. Well, Christy has expertise, and yes, I'm talking about a real Christy, right? She has expertise that makes her extremely valuable to me, really valuable, which also means that if she ever texts me with asking a favor or needs me to do something, it's yes, and yes, because her expertise is so valuable to me. I'm willing to do just about anything she asks me to do because I need access to that expertise. Now, some professors, like McGregor says, lawyers, doctors, architects, engineers, this is really the foundation of their influence, right? We listen to what doctors say because we need that information. This has legs past the relationship of employment or a semester or what have you, okay? By the way, included in this is respect. Now, you two, excuse me, you two were kind enough to say, hey, respect the fact that I have passion for what I'm doing and I really want you to do well. This is also a form of influence. My former manager, Penny Bivens, and she teaches now at Salt Lake Community College, she was my manager for 6 or 7 years, something like that. We're close friends now, but it's really out of the reverence and respect and the degree to which I revere her as a leader and as a manager that pretty much I'll always say yes to her. So even though she is no longer my manager and has not been my manager for over a decade, we've been business partners since then, I still kind of see her as my leader, okay? That's because of persuasion, expertise, and just, respect for her, all right? Okay, now, like Fayol, he says there's a ton of situational leadership involved in this. A good manager knows how to bring the right skills to bear to solve a situation. By the way, coaches. Coaches, Tyler, that is a tremendous example. It's funny, you'll call a coach even 17 years after you're no longer a member of the team because you respect their position. Even though their authority is gone in terms of being your coach, you respect them and what they provide, and so you still call them coach. That's a great example. Great example. Okay, let me give you some examples of situational leadership, and I'll do it in terms of professor to students, right? Sometimes members of the organization, the class, they don't know what it is they need to do to be successful. Okay, in those cases, as a manager, professor, same thing, right? My job is to educate and communicate, all right? Clearly explain what needs to be done, lay out the expectations, provide examples, give encouragement and feedback and so forth. This is what I do when my students need help understanding what to do in that situation. In another situation, some students, member of the organization, they may feel excluded. They may not feel like they're really included and part of the group. So I need to bring different skills to bear. I need to bring about participation and involvement. And that's kind of what these light bulbs are about, right? Now, granted, we have relatively few people here today, but I've taught this class with, say, 24 people, and a lot of people are far more comfortable participating in a chat than they are participating in a classroom. I've actually done a study on this. And so the light bulbs encourage participation and involvement in a safe way. So that's how I'm bringing that power of persuasion to bear. Sometimes anxiety is high. I often tell people that as a professor, the majority of my work is done during the first 2 weeks of the semester and the last 2 weeks of the semester. That's because it's during the first and last 2 weeks that anxiety is highest, I should say. And so my job is to facilitate and support and provide additional resources and say, I understand, don't worry, everything's going to be fine. You have a final in this class. Don't worry, everything's going to be fine. I'm going to take good care of you. And so when anxiety starts to get high here in about 2 weeks, I start to do more of this. Situational leadership. When resistors are in positions of power, sometimes a manager and the employees are kind of equal when it comes to power in an organization. In this case, a good leader, a good manager, knows how to negotiate, knows how to come to an agreement that allows everybody to get what they want and bring about a win-win solution. Oftentimes, bad managers think they need to win and the employee needs to lose in order to get what they want. No, everyone can win. One of my rules, guys, just so you know, it's a personal rule I have, is my objective is to get what I want with no conflict. That's my goal in everything. Get what I want with no conflict. Well, you know what? If I can help the other person get what they want and there's no conflict, then I win. The fact that they win as well is irrelevant. It's not a zero-sum game. There doesn't need to be a winner and a loser. So if I can get what I want with zero conflict, I'll work hard to make sure they get what they want so that we all come out ahead. Situational leadership. Sometimes an organizational objective is at risk. So, for example, during those last 2 weeks, every once in a while I say, hey, listen, you have to do this paper. You have to you can't skip this. Your grade is in jeopardy. And so, yeah, in a way, I'm practicing explicit coercion. I'm saying, if you don't do this paper, you are not going to pass the class. Now, we've had the whole semester. I've been helping you. We're trying to, make things work and so on and so forth. But it's down to the wire. The train is leaving the station. You have to do it. And this is a case where sometimes a manager needs to read the riot act and say, we're out of time. This has to happen. Now, you don't want to do that a lot, or at least I don't want to do that a lot. Remember, I don't like conflict. I want everybody to get what they want. But this is a situational leadership situation, okay? All right. We got one more reading, all right? One more reading, we'll fly through. Excuse me. We're going to go through this one pretty quick. The first two people, Henri Fayol and Douglas McGregor, were more humanists, right? They're looking at this from the human standpoint. These are people we're talking about. Not this guy. All right? Frederick Taylor doesn't like employees. Doesn't like employees at all. Check this out. Here's a quote from Frederick Taylor. Hardly a competent workman can be found who does not devote a considerable amount of time to studying just how slowly he can work and still convince his employer that he's going at a good pace. This guy has no respect for employees. He's a mechanical engineer by trade. And so he just sees workers as components of the machine, the system. And in fact, he believes the system is all important. The system is the most important thing. You, dear employee, are a member of the system. You are a component of the system, and the system trumps all. Well, now that seems kind of backwards from what we've just been talking about. Yeah. But here's the thing. We run our lives by this guy's philosophies. It's called time motion studies, efficiency. He's the one who it's because of Frederick Taylor that we have assembly lines, that we have McDonald's, that we can produce things really fast and really cheap at high quality, because of the systems he put in place. What he's all about is labor specialization to the umpteenth degree, really specializing everybody's role in the assembly line, and the product just kind of moves about and everybody does their small part. All right. So in the reading, and we'll just kind of shoot through this real quick. I won't read the slides and so forth. This is all in the reading. He tells the story of one of the members of his society. It sounds kind of like a back of a novel endorsement or, book endorsement thing. But he talks about this guy named Gilbreth who looked at applying time motion studies to bricklaying. And the whole argument he makes is, listen, people have been laying bricks for centuries. Centuries we've been laying bricks, building walls. And hardly anything has changed in all that time. Hardly anything has changed. No efficiencies, nothing done better or anything. So this guy Gilbreth says, all right, I'm going to apply the ideas of time motion studies to bricklaying to see if I can improve the process. And so that's what he did. He examined every single aspect of bricklaying, how the bricklayer positions their feet, how high the bricks are stacked, and the ladders and the motion, and how much mortar is used, and how many scrapes are used to put the mortar on the brick, and I mean just everything, right? He just examines every single little aspect of it. And he comes up with, he's basically able to take 18 motions and work them down into 5. All right, 5 motions. Whereas a bricklayer in the past, before he came along and did his time motion study, had to do 18 motions. Now they can lay brick in only 5 motions. Now, normally we're just a little short on time. I am going to talk through this. I'm not going to go to our 2-minute timer. I'm going to talk through this as I give you an example for me. But I'd like to invite you to talk about where you see this in your own jobs or your own lives, where you are removing steps, removing motions, trying to be more efficient. So an example for me is when I do video editing, it's like copy paste, right? Every once in a while, I will have, I'll be talking with a student and say, okay, copy this and paste it over here. Now for me, copy paste is 3 clicks and you selected the sentence, Control-C copies, and then move the cursor, and then Control-V pastes. All right, that's it. But every once in a while, I'll see a student that drags the mouse, and highlights the sentence, and then goes up to edit, clicks on edit, goes to copy, and then moves the cursor over, and then goes up to edit, goes to paste, and hits paste. That was way too many motions. You could have done it a lot easier. Well, the same thing goes for when I'm editing videos. I have a mouse here, like everyone else, and it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 buttons and features. And of course, they're all programmable buttons and features. And so what I've done is I've done key bindings for my editing, right? For cut and remove and ripple cut and so on and so forth. So when I'm editing my videos, I can just do it with my mouse, with my right hand. I'm doing a rough edit just with my right hand pushing these buttons. That's it. Versus if you're new to the software, put the cursor here, go up to edit, go down to cut, do it again, and then delete, and then all this sort of stuff, right? So this is what Frederick Taylor is all about, is removing unnecessary, wasteful motions to do what you need to do quickly, efficiently, and with high quality. Okay, so Tyler says, and let's come on back over here, make sure that we're set. Let's see. Through school, I've created spreadsheets for all my calculations, so I don't have to type them into the calculator every time. That's great. Great example. Also, created macros similar to your mouse. I also have presets for photography. Exactly. You don't have to redo everything all the time. You can just follow your macros, or you have your presets, so for me and my white balance and so forth, and you know what white balance is, you get it. I already know what settings I'm going to use for what situations and so forth. So it makes it a lot easier and more efficient. Exactly. Okay. But now here's the rub of all this. He goes on to say, listen, people have been laying bricks for centuries. And no doubt many bricklayers have figured out ways to make this process really efficient. But first of all, the wall can only go up at one speed. So everybody along the line needs to work at the same speed. And that speed is not going to be at the speed of the most efficient person. It is going to be at the speed of the least efficient person, the weakest link in the chain. A chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So that wall is going to go up at the speed of the slowest employee. Now, of course, this one bricklayer could lose his, scheitze and start telling everybody this is the way you need to do it and so forth, but he doesn't have the authority. Who are you to tell me how to do it? You worry about your section of the wall, I'll worry about my section of the wall. So for this reason, Frederick Taylor says it's the job of the managers to think it out and tell people how to do it. It's the job of the employees to do it. So check out how often he uses the word enforce. It's only through enforced standardization of methods, enforced adoption of the best implements and working conditions, and enforced cooperation that this faster work can be assured. And the duty of enforcing the adoption of standards and of enforcing this cooperation rests with management alone. So you kind of see his take, right? Which is, it's the manager's job to figure all this out through time motion studies, and then it's the employee's job to do it exactly the way that they've been trained to do it. Now, as a result, we have some incredible efficiency in this world. But, yeah, kind of makes for tough working conditions. But a lot of managers think that this is the only way to go. I'm going to end on this last quote from Frederick Taylor. In the past, the man has been first. In the future, the system must be first. Eek! Right? So, yeah, some food for thought there. A lot of food for thought. But, yeah, like I say, this is, on one hand, old readings from old things, but I'm telling you, not a lot has changed. It may not be that we're just hiring, white males related to the owner as much anymore. But when it comes to our appreciation and understanding of how to manage people, not a lot has changed. And so that's why you need to learn this stuff so that you can be the better managers. All right. By the way, in water polo, says Tyler, let me make sure I've got the right. We have the same saying in water polo, the team is as strong as the weakest player. This was why, as a captain, I spent more time in practice helping others get better. Yes. the best thing you can do for the team is raise those who are struggling the most. Yeah, great example. Great example. All right, folks. Good job. I'll throw in a few more light bulbs for you too that participated and so forth. When we only have a couple of folks, it's hard to get that participation, but we'll take good care of you guys. By the way, Tyler also goes on to say, I have family that works for CR England, trucking company, and they used to do whole family hire to managers. They have since changed this to be more productive. Yeah, they have a history. They have a history in terms of their culture and their management style. So, yeah, good example. All right, everyone. Thank you very much. As usual, I'll stick around for a couple of minutes if you have any questions or want to follow up on anything. Otherwise, yeah, they do, right, Tyler? They do. Have a fantastic week, and we'll see y'all next week, or maybe on Friday, or maybe tonight at the live stream, whatever works for you guys. All right, have a good one. We'll see you tonight, Tyler. All right, things look pretty quiet, so I am going to go ahead and sign off, and we'll see you later on.